Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, as we record this, today as we record this, there's been a bit of an announcement that is sending shockwaves throughout the Mac web anyway, or for my audience, where CrashPlan from Code 42 Software has decided to abandon the essentially the home backup market. And just took a lot of us by kind of surprise. So to talk about not that as much as what they do offer, and they will continue to offer, is Yev Pusin of Backblaze. Yev, welcome for the first time on MacVoices. It's great to have you.
Thanks for having me, Chuck. I'm happy to be here under interesting circumstances.
Very interesting circumstances. I appreciate you taking the time out on just what had to be a very boring, routine kind of day.
Yeah, not a lot going on. I'm not on my 11th cup of coffee by any means, so it's going pretty well.
Well, that's good. That's good. I know this took a lot of us by surprise. CrashPlan was a very well-respected name in individual backup, and I know there's some people that are, there are more than a few people that seem to be a bit upset about this. What was your reaction to this? And speaking for Backblaze.
Yeah, it was definitely kind of came out of the blue for us. The news broke early this morning. We got in a bit of a huddle and started talking about how we wanted to respond. For the longest time, actually, if you were to ask people who does online backup, actually, if you go back a little ways and 5 years ago, if you were to ask who did online backup, you would get a lot of different answers. You'd say Carbonite, Mozy, CrashPlan, Backblaze. Those were kind of the big four. And over the years, Mozy has exited the unlimited game. Carbonite hasn't really been doing a lot for consumers, and so it was for a long time. It was just Backblaze and CrashPlan. Like we had a really great kind of jovial relationship on Twitter. We were always I try to run our social end very kind of with some humor, and so it was a friendly rivalry. We never ribbed each other too hard, and so having kind of that partner in a way go away is it's a little unnerving. I don't know what the future will hold. It feels like a little bit of an abandonment, but I think we still provide a fantastic service, and we're hoping that we can provide a good home for the CrashPlan folks that might look at Carbonite's offering and or the other offerings out there really and see something that they don't like, and hopefully they can find a home with us. And a lot of them have, if today is any indication.
Under the heading of full disclosure, I'm a Backblaze customer, a very happy Backblaze customer. We have used CrashPlan at my office. In fact, I've had experience really with both CrashPlan and Backblaze. And we don't. This is just not our style here to slam anybody or start picking apart all the details. What's done is done. And so now it's time for all of us to make some decisions about moving on. And I thought it'd be a good idea just to get you on and talk a little bit about what Backblaze offers, how you offer it, what kind of pricing, all of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to chat about that. So Backblaze, for the longest time, a lot of people will notice that our offering has been pretty rock solid and steadfast throughout the years. It's $5 a month. It's unlimited data. It's your external hard drives are also backed up by default. We, a little bit differently than some of our competitors, we back up all the user data by default. So there's no picking and choosing. We think that's a bit more of a customer-friendly method. They don't have to worry about whether or not they select a file or not. But if they don't want anything backed up, then they can, of course, exclude it in most cases. And so that's it. For the last, our CTO likes to say that the product has been done for the last 8 years, and we've just been kind of making it slightly better. After you can successfully back up a person's computer and restore the files, as far as we're concerned, the backup is kind of done in terms of its core functionality. And so over the last 8 years, 10 years since we've been in business, we've added computer location, which was a feature that was highly requested by our consumer users because they were getting their laptops stolen. But we've noticed that a lot of our Backblaze for Business customers also really like it, especially if they are deploying a fleet of a lot of laptops. So That's great for them as well. We have spent a lot of time and resources making our service a lot faster. A couple weeks ago, we just released version 5.0, which doubles the amount of threading that we have. And so people can upload data much faster, in some cases 3 times or 10 times faster. We've also spent a lot of time working on how quickly people can restore their data. Backing up is kind of half of the story. If you can't get your data back, then no matter how quickly your ingress is, if your egress is not as great or slow, that's when people are having like their crisis points. And so we spend a lot of time trying to work on that and making sure that our egress is up to snuff as well. And so recently we've increased the speeds of those. Restores in general, we've added restore by mail, which is a supremely popular feature where we send people an encrypted hard drive with all of the data that they select on it, up to 4 terabytes. And so if you have a lot of data backed up with us, then you can get it back in one fell swoop. It's a lot easier than downloading it, especially if you're having bandwidth limitations. And most recently with version 5.0, we've also added single file downloads, so you no longer have to wait for a zip if you're just downloading 1 or 2 images. We've added image preview, and we have also added sharing with B2. So Backblaze B2 is kind of our cloud storage offering. It's a little different than our consumer and business backup solution because it's kind of an endpoint for data, sort of like Amazon S3 or Microsoft Azure or Google Cloud Service. And so we've leveraged that and are now allowing people to share whatever files they have backed up through Backblaze B2 with shareable links, which we think is a pretty fun feature. And we've noticed people playing with it and kind of sharing stuff on social. So that's been really fun. So that's kind of it. I mean, we're just a rock solid backup solution that's focused on consumers and focused on businesses. We think that both of those services can coexist. In a lot of the messaging that we've seen today, it seemed to indicate that the consumer market just wasn't there, and that there was a lot of greener pastures, I guess, on the business end. But we've noticed that as we're developing for both, some people will ask for certain features on one side, whether the business or consumer folks, and then the other people will say, "Oh my goodness, that's fantastic!" And a good example of that is our TOTP, our two-factor authentication via authentication apps. That was asked for by a lot of our business customers, and then it was supremely popular when we rolled it out with our regular consumer clients as well. And because the services are pretty much equally priced, it's $5 a month, $50 a year per computer. It really is a no-brainer. So, like whether you're just one individual person or you have your entire company backed up with us, everything scales really easily, and it's very simple. Sorry, that was a really long answer.
No, that's great, and there are a lot of things I want to dig into there just a little bit.
Sure.
One editorial comment. I think one of the reasons this whole thing has taken everyone by a bit of surprise is in today's world, it seems like all of us are generating more and more content. We said this on the show before. And so the idea that you don't need a backup or maybe an offsite backup is not as important for the consumer is a little crazy.
We tend to agree. So we have built up our almost entire business out of consumer. Right now, it's about a 60-40 split. So our business service is growing very, very rapidly. Actually, at the beginning of this year, we released our groups functionality, which we leverage, again, both for consumer and for our businesses. But that allows people to centrally administer and manage Backblaze accounts. And so that has taken off, and we are seeing both a lot of usage on the business side, but also on the consumer side of people just wanting to manage their familial units or something, or manage their grandparents' accounts. Saying that the consumer space is irrelevant is crazy to us. And so, if I could get one, if I could get one thing across to the listeners here, it's that, we are still very much committed to consumers.
Well, that's obviously good to hear, because otherwise I think a lot of us are going to go into a mild panic. So you mentioned Backblaze, personal Backblaze for business, but you use that one word that is really, really dangerous. Okay,
Oh,
unlimited,
yeah.
because so many of us have tried different services, backup and otherwise, where they say, "Oh yeah, unlimited data," and I don't think they really realized what the implications were of that. You've been saying this for a long time. I'm pretty sure by now you probably understand the implications of it because we are all now generating all this data. We are plugging external hard drives in with even more data to be backed up,
Yeah.
so it can get a little crazy. Do you have any qualms about that or the implications of that?
Not really. It's like a buffet. Some people eat more, some people eat less, and most buffets stay in business forever. I was a fan of Old Country Buffet when I was younger. I don't go to so many buffets anymore, but it's that type of model. So we have users that have as little as 20 gigabytes of data backing up with us. On the flip side, we have users with over 30 terabytes of external hard drives connected to their computer, and all of it is okay. We're leveraging our Backblaze B2 service for users that have a lot of data and want to use it a lot differently than a normal backup would. And so we want to have kind of storage or data storage answers, I guess, for anyone that has data needs. So one of the things that we don't offer on our small business, one of the things we don't offer on our business, or let me start over before I get tongue-tied. NAS drives and servers are not included in backup products. We do have a lot of integrations that back them up on our B2 product. And so that is kind of an artificial gate, so to speak, for the backup service. If we started backing up servers at a flat, low fee, that would kind of blow us out of the water as it would anybody.
Sure.
And so once we got B2 off the ground a couple of years ago, and we said, hey, look, it's still going to be the lowest cost, by the way, cloud storage solution available. Why don't you go to that? It's not going to be as low as $5 a month, but it'll be half a penny per gigabyte, which is basically $5 per terabyte per month, which is lower than Azure S3 and everyone I mentioned earlier. And a lot of folks migrated to that. They understand the implications of what they're doing in a lot of cases. And so if we give them a fair service, a lot of times they will take us up on it. That's what we found.
Okay, that's good. You'd like to believe that all makes sense, that the math can make sense, because obviously there are going to be people that back up more than less. Okay, wow, there's so much stuff here I want to get to. Versioning. Do you all support versioning?
Yeah, so we have a 30-day version history. It works similarly to how Time Machine would, which is for the first day we have versions for every hour, and then for the first week we have daily versions, and then we have like a weekly version for the month, for the duration of the month. It's similar to the Time Machine model that a lot of Mac users are familiar with. And so if we don't see a hard drive for 30 days, let's say, that's one of the things that's come up a lot today is 30-day retention. We will remove it as well from our backup. We view that as deleted data. We no longer see it, so we can no longer vouch for the validity of the backup of that data. There's a lot of things that can happen on the back end with backup services. Our B2 service is completely different, and so you can have a single copy of a file live there forever. But the backup service is not intended to be an archive. And so we do have a 30-day timeout, basically. But we try to be very fair. So if we see a external hard drive missing, we'll send you an alert on the 14th day, the 20th day, and then the 28th day, letting you know, hey, we haven't seen this in a while. We're going to remove the data. Please plug it back in. And in a lot of cases, that's more than enough for a lot of our customers who have a hard drive that they use kind of on the go and then unplug it every now and again as well.
Okay, and again, I want to make sure we hit that again. So you have a 30-day retention policy. So if I create a file today and don't touch it for 30 more days, if it's still on my drive, it stays there?
Yes, absolutely. So sorry, I wasn't clear on that. If it's on your computer and if it's on your drives, we will keep it for as long as it's there. But once we no longer see it, a 30-day counter will start, and then after that, we will age it out.
Got it. So if I create the file today and it's on my drive on the 29th day, it's still going to be there on the 32nd day.
Absolutely.
But if I delete it tomorrow, then 30 days from then, it's going to be deleted off your servers.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Just want to make sure that, people understand, because it's, I'm thinking for family photos and that kind of thing, those are pretty important rules to understand.
No, 100%. So we're very open about that. It's kind of all over our help articles and in the website that we have the 30-day versioning, especially for external hard drives, because that tends to be the thing that people unplug the most, especially the people that are kind of like, I use this hard drive and then I set it on the shelf for a while and then, it's never to be seen again. So we have it's exactly as you laid out. If the file is on your computer and we're backing up your computer, we'll keep it indefinitely. As soon as we no longer see it, that'll start the 30-day clock. And at the end of that 30-day clock, we'll remove it. And we're constantly thinking of ways of maybe augmenting that policy. We know for some people it might seem a little draconian, but it's a tough nut to crack. CrashPlan had unlimited versioning. So they claim we never tested it. We assume that's the case. And Carbonite also has a 30-day rule. Believe other providers also have like a 30-day retention. So we view it as sort of a backup industry standard. If we're talking about archiving or long-term data storage, that's a little different. And so for people with needs like those, we recommend using Backblaze B2, which is a slightly different type of service.
Okay. Is this block level backing up?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay. I guess I'm asking. It's not. If I change a 5 gig file, I'm not re-uploading another 5 gigs.
No, we should just back up the changes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Any restriction on file size if I have a particularly large file?
No, that was actually one of in our long slog towards where we are today of like making a more unlimited and faster service. That was one of the things that we kind of let go of. When we launched, we had a 4 gig file size limit. And I believe, don't quote me on the year, I think it was 2012. I think we got rid of that and just said file size doesn't matter.
Okay, that's definitely good.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm not going to call names, but I've had some negative experiences with other backup services, not Backblaze and not CrashPlan, to be fair.
Sure.
When something went wrong and I really, really needed the restore, I had all kind of problems. And the problems I'm thinking about in particular were with the client, the software client to download, where it wouldn't. And the response I get was, well, we don't know what's going on. Well, that's not what you want to hear. So no. I was particularly impressed by the idea that from you, I can order a hard drive of mission critical stuff and get it delivered back to me if that's necessary.
Yeah, that's been supremely popular. And then if you return us that hard drive within 30 days, we'll actually refund the cost of it. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier, but that came around, I believe, last year. We call it the Restore, Return, Refund program. I unfortunately named it, so it's a bit of a tongue twister. But if you order that restore, the USB hard drive restore, and you return it to us within 30 days, we'll give you a full refund for it. So we never want to make you feel like we're holding your data hostage. That's not what a backup provider should do. And that's not the business that we want to be in. So we want to be more than fair. We have to charge something for the external hard drives because it is a cost. So they're $189, but we ship them worldwide. They get sent encrypted. And if you don't want to keep the drive, toss it back to us, and we'll take it off your hands and give you your money back.
No, that's. I mean, I can't stress how important that is. Especially if you have something really mission critical, or you have bandwidth issues, or a dozen different reasons that would make an over the internet restore problematic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talk to me just a little bit about the encryption. Now, I know you said the drive sent back encrypted. That's fine. But how about when I'm uploading information from my computer to you? How safe is it, both in transit and once it arrives?
And at rest? Sure. So we encrypt everything on your computer before we send it. So we use, I believe, 256-bit encryption. Someone is probably yelling at me across from the office. I don't know a lot about the security. I do know that it is encrypted on the way up, and we send it over, I believe, HTTPS, so it should be secure throughout the entire pipe. And when it's sitting on our servers, it's stored that way as well. When you go to restore, because we do server-side restores in order to speed up the process, that way you're not decrypting things on your computer. We decrypt them on the restore servers, give you your file tree, and allow you to either download the data or build the hard drive. Either way, if you build the hard drive, we'll ship it back to you encrypted. If you download the data, we purge restored information after 7 days, unless you do it sooner. And that's never written. It's never publicly made available. It's all happening inside the restore system, the restore servers. So it's fairly safe. We also offer a private encryption key. So if you lose that, then you're kind of out of luck. We can't help you. Once again, you'd need that in order to do the restore, because we'd have to unlock the files, so to speak, do the restore, then send you the data. But even if you use a PEK, even at rest, we can't get to it. No one can get to it. So we tried to build the service to be as easy to use for as many people as possible. We're always looking at security and trying to find ways to make it a little bit better. But right now we think it's pretty good, at least for the 95% of folks. Some people have like a trust no one policy that they like to follow. Unfortunately, we think that those people are bad candidates for anything on the internet.
Good point.
If you don't trust anybody, then you don't trust anybody. A lot of people will tell you that they're completely locked down, but at some point you have to kind of take them at their word. And so, there's always going to be people that want more, and we try to accommodate them when we can. And so we do things like two-factor authentication, especially for the Backblaze account, where you do the logging in and the file browsing and stuff for when you're doing the restores. So we're trying to address security in a lot of different ways.
You're unlike some options out there. Your app is native Mac OS, and I would imagine that makes a big performance difference.
It does. Yeah. So a lot of folks like us for that exact reason, is because we are native on both Mac and PC. And so what that means is you're not running Java, which tends to be what a lot of other platforms are built on. And it tends to be, it's a perfectly fine platform. And in fact, it makes it easier to deploy across a wide variety of operating systems. The unfortunate side effect is it can be a little resource intensive. And so we found that our service tends to run fairly silently on Macs and PCs. A lot of times, some of my favorite anecdotes are like the tweets I see, which are, my computer crashed and I completely forgot I had Backblaze. And we kind of see that as a bit of a boon, because it means that we're running silently in the background. We're not bothering them. People aren't seeing a lot of resource usage. And when they need us, we're there for them. So it's a very that kind of gives us warm and fuzzy feelings, so to speak. But yeah, the non Java native apps have definitely helped us, especially in the Mac community, because we know no one on a Mac really wants to run a Java client anyway, or have Java even installed anywhere near their precious machines. So
right. Yeah.
So we feel them on that.
Well, and now I'll blow your horn for you a little bit.
Sure.
I like the ability that I can set up how much bandwidth Backblaze uses. I can set up how it's going to perform and the hours it's going to perform. That is like really important, because, for instance, while we're doing this, I don't want any of my bandwidth taken up by backups. Because it then degrades the video. So I can set Backblaze up to run in the middle of the night or over lunch, or whatever suits me, and not have to worry about it interfering. No matter how good you have it tuned, at some point, at the very least, you're going to start sucking up bandwidth.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the fun things that we see every now and again is someone will post a speed test, or they'll post how quickly we are backing them up. Kind of the flip side of that, you were talking about not backing up in certain cases. But if you crank us up to full bore, we will try to saturate your bandwidth pipe. We will do it. We're not afraid. A lot of customers do give us a lot of kudos on that, because they've come from other providers that, frankly, if you're providing an unlimited service, you want as little data coming in as possible, right? If we're being honest, we take an opposite approach, and we decided to make our storage costs with our Backblaze storage pods and storage vaults as low as possible, and so we pass the bandwidth sucking onto our customers, and so we will take that much data because we're not afraid of it. Our storage costs are very, very low.
Well, and as you said at the outset, this is a day when a lot of people may be making changes, and one of their first thoughts is going to be, how quickly can I get secure again? How quickly can I sleep well again? And so,
definitely,
crank it the whole way up and let it run overnight. You're going to get there a lot sooner.
We were when we were kind of talking about this morning, we were trying to strike a very neutral balance, but at some point, you as a company that does like to make money, to pay salary, we have to sometimes go for the jugular. And one of the things that occurred was CrashPlan and Carbonite had an agreement that they wanted to send their people over to Carbonite, but Carbonite has according to their website, at least what we were able to find this morning, has a hard cap at about 10 megabits a second. And if you have a lot of data, that will take you some time. Even if you have a lot of bandwidth, they'll slow you down. And so we think that's kind of a boon for people that are looking between the two of us. And on our blog, if you saw it this morning, we put a comparison between all of the Carbonite plans and ours, and we think we come out way ahead. And one of the reasons that we do that is because of the upload speeds. Our data ingress is so much faster that people can get backed up a lot quicker. And so hopefully they'll get that feeling of security back a little sooner.
Yeah, and I'm afraid I disagree with you. I don't think that's going for the jugular. I think that's that's stating objective facts about, this is what my competitors offer, this is what I offer. Feel like this is an advantage. If it is for you, great. If you don't care about sleeping at night, or you're not that worried about it, then it's not important.
It's okay.
Yeah. I like to sleep at night.
Me too.
If you
maybe not tonight, but
yeah. If you don't mind, would you do just a little bit of differentiation between the Backblaze backup product and your archive product, and explain that? Because I think people tend to think of those as almost interchangeable, and clearly they're not, especially in Backblaze's case.
Yeah, so we try to be very careful with the designation between the two. We like to think of it, or at least I do, in these terms, which is the backup client is intended to back up people and businesses, and to be out of the way, and to do it silently and continuously. And that should be what a backup is. You shouldn't have to think about it. You shouldn't have to futz around with it. You shouldn't have to change many settings. It should just work, and it should be there when you need it to restore. An archive is a long-term data repository. So if you think of like writing things to, there was a fun thing we saw at a conference once, which was like I can't remember what it was called, like an M disk or something, but it was basically like a CD or a DVD that would last for 1,000 years. I think it was kind of interesting. We kind of dug it, but it's something like that. You are okay with that being a singular copy of that piece of data. And that is what an archive is. You want one place where that piece of data lives forever. And a lot of times, at least in our case, those services are built somewhat differently. The way that the data is distributed, either across internal systems, or in some cases with other vendors like external systems, will be different depending on whether it's a backup or an archive. A backup, you're assuming that the customer or the person that's doing the backup also has a copy of that file. And so that's part of where the 30-day retention comes into play. Is if you lose the file, we still have it for 30 days. If we get hit by a meteor, in all likelihood, you still have the file. If you live next to our data center and we both get hit by a meteor at the same time, we probably both have larger problems. But it's not inconceivable. And so archives are intended to be a singular repository, whereas backups are intended to work and be there when you need them. But that's why we often talk about a 3-2-1 backup strategy. You want it to be distributed and you want it to be across different vendors. And so we like to think of Backblaze as one of the pillars of a 3-2-1 backup policy. And I can get into that a little bit, which the 3-2-1 basically means 3 copies of any particular type of data or any particular piece of data, 2 copies on site, but on different mediums, and 1 copy off site. So an example of this that actually a lot of our customers use, and I don't know if that's because of our blog post, urging people to back up or think of backup in these terms. But a lot of folks have the original copy of the file, which is 1 copy. It exists on their computer. They have a local backup on an external hard drive, whether that's Time Machine or Western Digital and Seagate. Hard drives often come with their own software. Works just as well, and that'll do local backups. And then they'll have an offsite component, and Backblaze is the offsite component. And so any one of those can fail, any 2 of those can fail. If all 3 fail, that's a bad day probably. But if you distribute across different vendors as well, then you should be safe in the vast majority of circumstances. Whereas archiving systems are certainly intended to be usable for one singular copy of a piece of data. Long-winded answer again.
No. But again, these are important things, especially if people are making buying decisions and switching decisions right now. And I don't want to go too far down this particular rabbit hole, but I do want to acknowledge that Backblaze has kind of become a bit of an authority on hard drive reliability with some of your studies. I mean, I know I've popped up your website plenty of times, when I'm making buying decisions about, well, let's see, what's got the best lack of failure time, and I think it's interesting that you all have, along with anyone that does that kind of mass data storage, has to have this data available to them, and you've been very generous to share it with all of us.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting data point, and the reason that we started sharing it was honestly because we thought it was cool, and because we had it, and we thought it was a little funny that no one else was sharing it. Because clearly other people have a lot of data that they store on their own. And for us, it was a matter of we have all these hard drives spinning. Like when we did our first one, we either had 30,000 or 40,000 hard drives at the time, and now we're well over, 75, 80,000, approaching 100,000 soon. It's crazy. But we wanted to share that data. And now, just to be clear, that data shouldn't inform a purchasing decision because our environment is a little different than what you would find in your house. People interpret our data set differently. Some people view it as complete nonsense because, well, they're not running Backblaze storage pods in their home, so the data is irrelevant. Other people view it as, well, if they can survive a storage pod, they can certainly survive sitting on my computer desk in a nice air-conditioned home without being jostled around and having 45 other hard drives spinning or 60 other hard drives spinning around it. So people's mileage may vary with the stats, but we thought they were cool. And so we published the raw hard drive stats on our website, and people can play with the data however they want. And it is kind of fun to chart kind of the failure curves and stuff in our own environment. As data nerds, just kind of neat.
Well, and I respect your point, but I guess I feel like I don't have. When I go to purchase a hard drive, I have zero information. You've given me some information. I may not be exactly your use case, use case, but it's given me something to try to make a decision. Especially when here's brand A, here's brand B. They're both the same price. They're both the same capacity. They're both the same speed. I'm obviously going to look to your data and say, okay, this one seems to have, at least based on what you do, a better time. That's the way I'm going to go. So it may be a failed logic there at the last, but it's mine.
Well, it's if it's yours, then it's right. At least for you, right? So it really is what people make it out to be. I think when our first post came out, we got a lot of pushback because we misnamed the blog post, and this was probably my fault because I think we named it "What Hard Drive Should I Buy?" And that was, I think, that was a tactical error. If I could take that back, I would, because I think it kind of instilled this, well, that is the hard drive I should buy. It has the lowest failure rate. And that really wasn't the intent of the post. If people had read the entire thing, they would kind of get it. But unfortunately, because of the SEO world we live in and the title that we chose for that particular one, it went a little bit off the rails. The subsequent ones have been a little bit more tame, and we've tried to hammer that point home with different messaging. But if you use it, like I said, a lot of people use it as a stress test. Our environment, granted it's in a data center and the drives are very happy and they're not vibrating all over the place and it's air conditioned or heated in some cases, I guess, and the drives are happy. It's still in a server with 59 other hard drives bouncing around kind of around it. And so people see it as a worst case scenario, especially because it's on all the time. Our servers don't really go down. And so a lot of people will say, well, I shut my computer down every now and again, so that gives the hard drive a rest. I think the jury's still out on that, actually. If you ask hard drive enthusiasts whether or not which one's worse for it, staying on or being turned on and off, I think the jury's still out. But a lot of folks do see our environment as like the worst possible scenario, and other people say it as like a completely unrealistic scenario for a hard drive. So they don't make purchasing decisions based off of it. But that's not to disparage you, Chuck. You should totally, however you want to use that data, that's why it's there. It's up to the person.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I feel validated.
I didn't want you to feel bad.
Yeah. Listen, you've been so generous with your time. Let's put a bottom line on this, because I think let me ask this. Is there anything we have missed that is an obvious strong point of Backblaze, or a point that people should look at you versus anybody else they decide to maybe consider in this situation?
I think if people look at us, they'll see a track record of a decade of just honest and open backup. Like it really is as simple as that. I think our online persona is very much in line with our company, with our internal company kind of feelings and the way that we run things in house. We're very loose, but we know that we're kind of running a serious business. And so when we first started, it was a little bit of a, well, we want to be like one of those tech companies that's like kind of cool and in Silicon Valley, and we post memes and do all sorts of fun GIFs and things like that. But at the end of the day, we're dealing with people's data. So we, while we don't want to act like a bank, so to speak, and be very rigid and put on a persona of being very serious, we do take it seriously, the storing of people's data. We've restored over, I want to say 24 billion files now. We store over 350 petabytes of data. I think last I checked, since we are name dropping, I think Carbonite on their site, they might not have updated it for a while, but I think they're claiming like 110 or 115 or something. So we've been around. We may not be the largest name, but we definitely know what we're doing. And we're still seeing growth in our consumer field. We're seeing a lot of growth in our business, with our business service. And Backblaze B2, the infrastructure that's built on top of our storage vaults, is growing like mad as well. And so even though we're a decade old, I think that just gives us a lot of domain knowledge on how to store and hold on to people's files. And if you look at the number of files restored, 24 billion, that should be an indicator that it works. That's a lot of happy people.
Yeah. Should also be an indicator that hard drives do fail and you need an online backup. So
definitely. What it's a funny kind of anecdote about that. The majority of our restorers are just one file or just a couple files. And so that's actually informed some of the ways that we've built out our restore site. Because we noticed that a lot of people are just downloading one thing on the go, and we figured, we did a little bit of research, and a lot of people, because their entire computer's backed up, if they go to a place where they don't have access to their computer, they'll remember that, well, that file was on that computer, so I can just log in from any computer, download that one file, and then be off to the races. So we see that, and that's one of the reasons why we built in the single file download. Now you can just go in, you can download a file. I think right now, you can download a single file directly from the web and be off to the races. And so that's kind of a fun anecdote, but don't worry, our restore by mail department is always very, very busy. And that is an indicator that hard drives do fail, because those are like 4 terabyte drives that are going out the door.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, last thing, and it's it truly is always the bottom line. What kind of pricing do you have? And I'm thinking specifically in the consumer market.
Yeah, so it's very simple. Our consumer and our business product is the same. And so the pricing is the same. We don't like to make things complicated for people. We're $5 a month, or $50 a year, or $95 for 2 years for business or consumer licenses.
That's it.
That's it. I mean, that's it. We don't like tiered pricing. We think it's another thing for people to think about. A lot of our competitors are, they kind of go, either 500 gigs and 1 terabyte and then 2 terabytes and whatever. But that's another thing for people to ponder or dread. They don't know how much data they have or what they're going to need, whatever it is. And so you can sign up for a month. If you have commitment issues, that'll be $5. If you are willing to commit a little bit, we give you a bit of a discount. That's $50 a year. And if you're in it for the long haul, it's $95 for 2 years. And that's whether you're a business or a consumer.
Wow. That's perfect. Yeah, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it. And I know it's been a particularly busy day, so I appreciate you coming on and giving folks some information about Backblaze and what you offer, and seeing where we take it from here. So, and again, I'm a happy customer. Keep up the good work, please.
You bet, Chuck. Thank you so much.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. I want to tell you something. I've been doing this for around 11 years now. This guy is the first person who has ever put his own lower third behind him on a whiteboard. Great job. I love it. I love it. Please, folks, if Backblaze, whoever you decide to use, please get an offsite backup. Probably the most telling thing in this interview was the number of files restored. That really says that in spite of what Yev said, people need this stuff and they need to store it offline somewhere where it's safe. Please do that. Until the next time, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes, links to subscribe, and to connect with Chuck on Twitter, Google+, Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo, SoundCloud, the MacVoices blog, the MacVoices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter, and on MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard that helps you do more with your Apple tech. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.